The tools that have gotten our users these type of results have become even more powerful. And now with our completely revamped offerings, anyone can leverage Stochastic's cutting-edge products to dominate this football season. In addition to our contest simulation tools, we've added our new single lineup simulator, where you can get instant feedback on the quality of your hand-built lineups in seconds. And all of our other industry-leading data will be waiting for you when you get here as well. So stop guessing and start winning with Stochastic.
Hell yeah. I'm ready. It's going to be fast. That's what she said. Welcome, everybody, to MLB Live Before Lock, presented by Bet365. I am Eric Lindquist, as somebody put written down. It was weird to look at the other day. But anyway, I'm Lindy. Hi. We got Jordan Klein producing behind the scenes. But of course, my guy, riding shotgun here alongside me, Matthew Belman at Fantasy Tips Matt over on X. Had a fantastic night last night. Sent me the screenshot, and it was lovely to look at. Very up there in all of the high-stakes tournaments. Matt, how are you doing this fine day, you richer than rich individual?
I am feeling good after last night. As I was telling you before, was a little surprising because I used Nick Martinez in all of my lineups, him with Flaherty, and neither of them, well, especially Martinez, was not good, negative points, but the red stack at even lower ownership than expected, and Detroit, two stacks I talked about on the show. I mean, that's who I played. Both those teams went off. So yeah, it was a good night. If I had used Spence and just listened to you instead of being so stubborn, would have been a much bigger night. But, you know, DFS is always a coulda, shoulda, woulda, you know?
Yeah, I cashed one lineup. That was good. And I, was thinking about, hey, I'll diversify some lineups as we go around throughout the night. But alas, still wasn't like a great night by any means. So I was happy to see your screenshot, happy to see that it still worked out for you there. I thought the really sharp calls from you, Detroit definitely got there in a pretty prominent way. And I think you were the only person on planet Earth who was firing up Detroit there in that spot. They came to fruition. And yeah, the Cincinnati stack, come from behind fatality, if you will, against the Blue Jays. It was fun to witness, but we're on to today. It's going to be a short show. We got 36 minutes here for you. Hit the like button as we get going and start breaking everything down. We'll talk about Bet365 at the midway point, maybe talk about a bet or two that I have on my card. Anybody interested in Francisco Lindor to go yard today? I sure am, in Petco, which has been the #1 park above expectation that we would see in the home run market this season. No idea why, but here we are. Let's start breaking down this slate. Anything you really like before we dive into DraftKings first?
Anything I really like? No. I think
that about this slate, you like anything? Like, are you excited for this slate? Do you like it? Is there anything that really sticks out to you about it?
Not really. No, honestly, I think there's a bunch of pitchers that look similar and a bunch of offenses that look similar. I don't have strong convictions like I did last night. Doesn't mean that it's not going to work out just as well, but I don't feel as strongly as I did last night. Smaller slate, opens up the, more contrarian game theory type of stuff. So I'm excited to talk it over with you and see what we can agree on.
The Open Hots collection. I'm very excited for it. Let's party. Let's start with pitching, where we have two guys who are pulling giga ownership, as one of my friends, Jesse, downside of me, would say. Giga ownership on Paul Skeens and Dylan CC Smother Truckers. It's going to be fun. Both of these guys, very, very good. But, of course, the big news, Paul Skeens potentially getting his innings limited. They said they have no plans to shut him down. That's the exact wording that we had in that blurb. But Ken Rosenthal, he's reporting from The Athletic that they're going to shorten his starts. I have no idea what that means. I've been staring at his strikeout prop, 7.5. I was staring at his pitching outs for a while, 17.5. I have no idea what to make of this news. I don't think you can play him at 100% capacity, but 90% capacity is good enough when you're talking about a Cincinnati matchup that is so glorious when it comes to the strikeout market. I don't even know what to tell you. 4th highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitching on the season. How do you feel about Paul Skeens specifically today relative to the ownership coming in on Dylan Cease, who is identically owned 53% on both of them?
Man, I think there's real question marks on both these guys. I know that we were talking a little bit before, and you were talking about probably being underweight on both. And I'm like, I'm with you here. My biggest problem is there aren't pivots that I like. So I'm going to play a little Skeens. I'm going to play a little Cease. I'm playing 4 lineups. I might just play one lineup with both of them together and then not play either one of them in any of the other lineups. As far as I'm concerned, though, given the recent report on Skeens, Cease is the much safer play here. I mean, either of these guys can get there in 5 innings with strikeouts, but you know, we've seen what's happened with other young starters, and teams are cautious with guys like this. Now, he's still making a push for the Rookie of the Year. And if he only goes if he does what Garrett Crochet is doing, he won't win Rookie of the Year. So he's going to need to put together a couple more starts. I'm sure that's at least on the agenda a little bit for Pittsburgh, considering they're not shutting him down. But still, a lot of concerns as the highest priced and highest owned pitcher on the board. I'd rather play Cease, but I'd also rather play Mets against Cease than Reds against Pirates. So that's kind of how I feel about this slate.
Kind of where I'm at too. I'm currently holding hands with the field to some extent on Paul Skeens, 50%. I have 65% Dylan Cease. However, that is going to change here because I think the more that I've worked through this slate and tried to figure out where the field's going to go, I do think we're going to see really low ownership on Corbin Burnes. I think we're going to see really low ownership on Nick Lodolo. And I think we're going to see really low ownership on Spencer Arrighetti. It keeps coming down the more and more that the day goes on here. And I do not know what to make of the Paul Skeens number. I see 7.5 strikeouts in the market. I'm going to use that as the baseline. He's still going to be somebody who shows up in my lineups, but I have started to ROI boost a little bit of Corbin Burnes, who I don't think people really want to be getting to. He has been terrible from a fantasy perspective to some extent. 18.8, I mean, fantasy points per game, he's 3rd highest on this slate, technically amongst all the pitchers, but we've seen some struggles. We've seen, Nick Lodolo and Corbin Burnes both coming off of getting completely shelled in their last outings. I think we're seeing the ownership. Now it's sub 20% on Corbin Burnes and 10.5% on Spencer Arrighetti. We don't know what the strikeouts can look like. Is there major downside with the lefties? In fact, like Ryan O'Hearn, somebody that I bet in the home run market. Yeah, there absolutely is. But from a DFS perspective, I'm looking for leverage. I'm looking for ways on a 5-game slate to get different. And I think I'm going to rip down some of that ownership on Skeens and Cease, because if people are feeling very confident about Skeens' workload, I think he's going to be pretty successful. But does he have 30 in the chamber here? I don't know. Our friends at Underdog have him at 39.5 fantasy points for his baseline on FanDuel. It's FanDuel scoring over there. I'm not very confident about that with the reports. So I think I'm going to naturally bring him down before I bring Cease down. And as a result, I think I'm just going to get a little bit lower on both and go to the rest of the range.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Burnes here just because of the ownership. Again, I don't play a lot of Burnes at all. He's usually pricey and owned, but tonight he's not really that pricey and unowned. Houston, I don't like to use pitchers against them, but it's kind of a Dodger situation here where it's the top of the lineup's really good and then the bottom is not. A lot of young hitters who strike out. So I like Burnes here. Coming off a few bad starts. The last start was the worst of his season. I like aces in spots like this, get right spots, and Burnes is a legit ace. He hasn't been amazing from a DFS perspective, but he's one of the best pitchers in all baseball. So I like the call on Burnes here. Yeah, the thing about Skeens, I'm a little torn because obviously I played Cincinnati last night, but the first 4 innings or 4.5 innings of that game, man, Yariel Rodriguez was just carving. And if Skeens, Yariel Rodriguez is not good. Skeens is an elite strikeout pitcher. So if he's on his game, I could see him with 8 Ks through 4 here. That's not crazy by any means. I think there's a much lower floor than we'd like, though, is the problem. So yeah, I don't know. Certainly his ceiling is lower than it normally would be because he won't go as long, but he still has the strikeout upside to be the highest pitcher on the slate. I think it's the floor that I'm most worried about.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's worried about, but I don't know what to make of it. We can all see the report. Everybody who's playing a bunch of MLB DFS this time of season isn't immune to it. I think there's probably one of 2 ways to look at it, where it's is this a innings limitation or is this a pitch count limitation, which sounds stupid, but we've seen that be the thing that other managers have said in the media. about other pitchers. Can't think of them off the top of my head, but I know that Greg and I have had those conversations here recently where it's like, well, 100 pitches, Luis Heel, that's the first guy. So they're going to put a 5-inning cap on him, but he'll go and throw 105, 110 pitches. That's just ridiculous. Like, I don't see how that's one-to-one apples to apples, but whatever, such is life. If it's a 15-out limitation, 6 strikeouts, 40% strikeout rate, that'd be a little bit above average, or, kind of what you'd be looking at in this matchup against Cincinnati. If it's not from a 5 innings perspective and it's pitch count, he gets up to 100, you could be going into the 7th inning anyway. So, it is what it is. I think you're embracing a little bit of risk by just jamming Paul Skeens, but maybe we see the field come in a little bit lower than you think. I don't know. I'm having a tough time with it, but
I agree with that.
The way that I'm going to combat it is just know that I'm getting some strikeout arms down here in the 8K range and the 7K range at discounted ownership, and maybe the floor does show up for Skeens. We've got Corbin Burnes, Spencer Schwellenbach, Nick Lodolo, brought it up before. Burnes and Lodolo, worst outings of their season last time out. Corbin Burnes, weird lineup here. Ben Gamble in the lineup for the frickin' Houston Astros. Didn't have that on my bingo card in the year of our Lord 2024, but that is just the way the cookie crumbles, I suppose. Nick Lodolo, great curveball. Obviously like the matchup going up against Pittsburgh, but the ERA is starting to trail up. We do have a floor there, but at 14 and 18% ownership, I can get behind them. Schwellenbach, he's got a tough matchup against Philly, but he's been the best of those 3 from a strikeout and fantasy perspective over the last month. How are you feeling about this 8K range specifically?
Oh, man, kind of feel similarly about the 8K range as I do the top tier range. Like Schwellenbach is a guy I've played a lot of. I played him in his last start when he was expensive against the Angels at pretty low ownership, and he was real good until he wasn't, kind of like Bailey Ober. I just feel kind of off about taking him after he struggled at the end of his last outing in just a brutal spot here against Philly. He's good enough where, like, yeah, he could be the highest scoring pitcher on the slate, and he's 8,500. So definitely in the pool for me. I'm not exactly sure like how much, if I'm going to play him. I also like Philly bats against him. And for me, Corbin Burnes is the guy. It's almost a process of elimination thing for me. I just don't really like the top guys, and they're all getting ownership. Meanwhile, Burnes, probably the best actual pitcher of the bunch. You could quibble, say it's Cease. Skeens at this point, I don't think anyone would say he's the best actual pitcher right now after his recent, stretch of games. And he's just not getting owned. I made the point about the Houston lineup. So I don't love Burnes ever. Certainly don't love him tonight, but he's my favorite pitcher on the slate considering ownership. And then after that, like, I'm with you on Arrighetti, who we'll get to.
Chris Williams sending out another 5 stochastic DFS subs. My guy, every single time he jumps in here, just doing fantastic stuff. We just really appreciate you. 5 gifted subs to Kyle Gentry. Oh, wait, no, then he has his sub already. Jay Brown, Irvin Torres, Delfino Lopez, Drew BC, 650, and Chris Fan. We love to see it. We appreciate you so much, my dude. Just fantastic every single time. Into the 7K range we go. I like Christopher Sanchez's chance of succeeding here. Ground ball pitcher. Does he get enough strikeouts to compete with some of these dudes? I don't really know. Ryan Yarbrough, I don't think we're going to be clicking on at 7,700. Looks like the field just completely unplayable as it is. But I want to ask you about Spencer Arrighetti at 7,500. Look at his top 2 percentage for us. We've got him at 18.3%, just barely behind Burnes. About 8% difference between him and Schwellenbach. There's no question this matchup sucks, but a couple of good things. 1, Baltimore, the winds started to die down a little bit. 2, 75 with like 45% humidity. It's not the gauntlet that it was earlier in the season. And 3, I think the strikeout upside is as high on just about anybody else on this slate aside from Paul Skeens, which is kind of crazy to say because, you're sitting there with a guy like Dylan Cease, 31.5% K rate. There's no doubt that is nifty to be looking at, but I look at Spencer Arrighetti, 27.5% K rate. If he's not walking a ton of dudes, which he's actually limited those walks over the course of his last 5 starts, hasn't had over 2 walks in a single one of those 5. And he's had some tough spots at Oakland, the Dodgers, at Boston. He's had an easy spot there at home against the White Sox, and that was his worst start of all of them. Riddle me that, Batman. But I really like Spencer Arrighetti for tournaments. I don't know how you wouldn't on a 5-game slate with that strikeout rate it's just screaming to me from a DFS perspective to play more than 10% of this guy. Currently 3x hit in my lineups. How do you feel about Spencer Arrighetti, who, yeah, 5.5, not a great prop across the industry, but I think the strikeout upside, if he's got his good stuff here, is as good as anybody on the slate outside of Skeens.
Yeah, so I'm playing Arrighetti here. Again, process of elimination. I think I'm going to play a bunch of both pitchers in this game. And brutal spot. I think his floor is for certainly low here. I mean, Baltimore, I never like using pitchers against Baltimore, but it's mostly I never like using expensive pitchers against them. Arrighetti's not expensive here, so I'm willing to like override that. And he's not getting ownership on a slate where I think there's question marks with everyone. So yeah, I think you can certainly poke holes in Arrighetti here. Like he's not safe at all. Baltimore has upside, but at the end of the day, I think Arrighetti has upside as well. And you mentioned the top pitcher tool, and I'm right there with you. Like he's by far the highest leverage pitcher on the slate. That stuff matters on slates like this. He's 1,000 cheaper than Schwellenbach, who I think Schwellenbach is the better pitcher right now, but give me a matchup against Houston or a matchup against Philly right now. Philly's fully healthy. Houston is not without Kyle Tucker. So yeah, I'm playing Arrighetti and Burns. I'm sure that's lighting my money on fire, but just slate considered.
That's the spirit. Way to go. Yay. Go, Spencer. There's vomit on his sweater already. Spencer Arrighetti. He's nervous. But on the surface, he looks calm and ready to break down FanDuel. Yeah, FanDuel time.
Oh, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, we've got Paul Skeens there at 10-9, 10-9, 31% ownership. If I was trying to cut bait on Paul Skeens between the two sites, I think it's a little bit easier to do on FanDuel considering, well, yeah, 17.5 pitches like minus 250 I saw. So I guess the quality start is kind of being assumed by the market now. I saw yesterday as under 18.5 outs was sitting at minus 275 across the book. So maybe just lands on 6 and 85 pitches and that's it. That's all she wrote anyway. Probably an all right option. I'm not saying completely slash it, but my goodness, we have some really, really different options there across the board. Dylan Cease pulling 32% ownership, understandable, although not a great strikeout matchup against the Mets. And yeah, coming off of just getting tailed himself a little bit. Spencer Schwellenbach, 9,300. Spencer Arrighetti, 8,700, 4% ownership. Oh, daddy like you a lot. But I think if I had to play one lineup, Corbin Burns at 9,700, I know it's not the best spot in the universe taking on Houston in this ballpark, lefty power, but outside of Yordan Alvarez, I don't think Ben Gamel's the lefty power that we're really that terrified of here at this point in time. I think he would be my play if I were playing FanDuel today in one lineup. How about for yourself based on our ownership?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the same stuff here, and I think both of us have the same read on the slate that like, yeah, if ownership weren't a thing and we were just picking raw scorers, Skeens or Cease, and then Skeens would be the guys, but that's not what we're doing. And the ownership is just flocking to them at a rate that's too high. So give me Burns, even though he projects slightly less. It's just coming in with so much lower ownership. And again, I think there are serious question marks with Skeens and Cease. If there weren't, and I felt like they were just by far the best plays, I would play them. I don't care enough about ownership with pitchers where I like won't play them if I think they're really good plays. I just don't feel that way about either Skeens or Cease here.
Yeah, I think I am kind of weirdly with you. It's just a crazy pitching slate, actually. I mean, we have studs and we have strikeout upside in the low tiers like Lodolo, Arrighetti. I mean, it's just a really fun slate, I think, from that perspective. So hopefully we can parse through it a little bit here for you, or that we have parsed through it a little bit for you. DK, your favorite spend up between Skeens and Cease is?
It's got to be Cease, given the reports. I mean, again, I'd rather stack the Mets than stack the Reds here. I'm off the Reds tonight. Like, I'm not playing them again. After, not because they did be good last night. I just think there's better spots here. But the Mets, like Cease, I don't know. He hasn't been great recently. He really struggled towards the end of that start against Colorado. I like going against guys that like struggled when they left their last start, a la Cease, Schwellenbach here. So again, I think ultimately Cease is the top pitcher on the slate. I just don't feel good about it. And ownership is clearly going to be there because there just aren't good options. And I'll say this to your point before, I definitely think the ownership on Skeens is going to go down a little bit while Cease's rises. On DK, we have them at 50% each, 53% each. I think it'll be more like 65 Cease, 45 Skeens.
Okay. Yeah, it probably is going to be in your tournaments in the high stakes for sure. I think that's going to be what we're looking at. I think it'll be closer to neutral in like the $15 in the forward, like the four seamer. Like I think that we're looking at more comparable ownership between the two there, but I'm probably with you where I think the higher up you go in buy-in level, single entry especially, I think we'll still see Skeens come down a little bit as a result of the news. I'm just so curious to see what his pitch count ends up being. I mean, we're going to be playing armchair quarterback at the very end of this saying, I knew, or I didn't know, or somebody knew, or somebody didn't. It's like absolutely nobody knows jack diddly squat. Nobody. We don't know they're playing.
No, we don't. It's not about like guessing what's going to happen. It's about, the ownership and all that stuff. So, I mean, again, obviously I think Skeens and Cease project the best, but baseball is the least projectable sport out there. So take that with what you want.
I'm with you. You know what is pretty projectable? When a sportsbook is giving you an offer like this, bet 5, get 150 over at Bet365, now available in Pennsylvania. Massive opportunity for you there. You bet 5 at the link that Jordan Klein is throwing into chat or at the link below there. And you're going to get $150 in bonus bets this second, as well as 50 spins in the old virtual slot machine. That is a great opportunity for you to build, sustain your bankroll. I say that a lot, but like, it is so unbelievably true. When sportsbooks are giving you ridiculous offers, especially leading into an NFL and college football season, week 0, starting up Saturday, looking forward to that. Make sure you watch Ben Raza, Matt Gajeski, as they break down betting you, break down that Georgia Tech and Florida State game over in Dublin. I indeed, something like that. I guess that was Scottish. But anywho, we've got Bet365, bet 5, get 150 at the link below. Only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All righty. We've got, 17 minutes left. Smash the like button as we start breaking down some stacks. And yeah, we did a pretty good job, I think, talking through the ins and outs of the pitching slate. Is going to be very, very variable. And I'm giving a little bit of an ROI decrease here to Mr. Paul Skeens, building up a little bit of Arrighetti and some of these other pieces that it's going to be interesting. I will say, one of the other cool things is that Schwellenbach is showing up quite a bit here in my lineups in the Sims, and so I'm going to be firing up a little bit more of that. Like the Phillies on the other side as well, that's going to be a stack that I'm going to be considering here for single entry. But in single entry today, my friend, we've got the Toronto the Blue Jays pulling a ton of ownership here at the moment. We really have nobody else pulling any type of ownership of any considerable degree. Who would you be firing up in single entry tonight?
On DK?
On DK.
I mean, I think for me, it's Burns Arrighetti. Like,
oh, no. Stacks. We moved on to the Stacks world.
Sorry.
Stacks.
I thought we were recapping.
Oh, okay, no. We're all done with that.
All right, cool. Stacks wise, I'm going to say it's really close. I think there's a bunch of good looking stacks. I think just like the pitching's close. Stacks are close also. If forced to choose one though, man, I'm gonna say the Mets. I like the Mets here as a stack. My biggest problem with them and why I really hesitate is, first off, Cease is really good, so it doesn't work out that often, but the Padres bullpen is good. So you really have to have them get to Cease. I think that's plausible here though. I mean, the Mets are good and Cease is getting a ton of ownership. So I think they're my answer here, but I also like the Angels and Phillies a lot. And I think those teams are more likely to have success here than the Mets, but the Mets are going to be lower owned. And when the Mets do come through, they hit home runs. So yeah, kind of my 2 cents.
I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, when the Mets come through, they hit home runs. Francisco Lindor, plus 500 at BetMGM today. Fire that up. Why San Diego continues to play small, beyond small, beyond small, I will never know. The world may never know, in fact, but I'm pretty okay with it. So just fire that up. That seems like an interesting spot. I think my favorite stack, though, as opposed to just like individual hitters, where again, they're the lowest owned stack the Mets are on the entire slate. Think of playing one lineup and one lineup alone. It's really hard for me to get away from the Angels. They are pulling so much positive leverage going up against Ryan Yarbrough. And to take it a step further, you have a terrible Toronto bullpen sitting behind them. I find the Angels to be pretty appealing when you talk about the price points that they're at too. 4K Taylor Ward, 4,300 Zach Neto, and then nobody else who is worth absolutely anything. Joe Adell in 6-hole, 3.3K. Boom bust options, Shanuel 3.6K. Rendon batting cleanup for whatever reason. Here we are. Mickey Moniak 2.8K. Taking him on. I think Ryan Burt into Ryan Yarborough. Let's take advantage of the Ryans and the rest of this terrible, terrible bullpen that just had to get utilized in some massive games, massive shootout games, that is, against Cincinnati in the last two. I really like the Angels. How about you?
Yeah, I like the Angels a lot. My biggest problem with them is I think they're going to end up being, well, first off, we have them projected to be the second highest owned team on the slate. Like they're right there with Pittsburgh. So it's not like you're sneaking up on anyone. They do have positive leverage because they're so cheap, but like, it's kind of the same point I said last night when they were popular. Like they're not good and they're popular. So, you know, teams like the Phillies stand out a little bit more. It's kind of what we talked about last night. Like the Phillies are in a tougher spot against a better pitcher, but the Angels are still the Angels and they're getting ownership. That said, I like them too. Like I'm definitely playing some Angels here. I'm just not going to be surprised when it doesn't work out and they're a little bit higher on than we're projecting.
Look at you. I like it. I like it a lot. Hang on one second here. I screwed up something on my sheet. There we go. That's what I was doing here. All right. I got that covered. Awesome. Yeah, I really like the Angels. And then any other stack that you're really prioritizing in your set of lineups? I'm assuming like 3-4 lineups today.
I think the Angels do stand out as like the best dollar per dollar stack. But for me, I like the Phillies and I like the Mets here. I also kind of like the Padres. Again, kind of the opposite of what I was talking about earlier. Like Severino coming off one of the best starts of his career, complete game shutout against the Marlins. They let him throw a ton of pitches there. I'm looking up right now exactly how many. He threw 113 pitches in that game. He is not a guy like he had thrown it over 100 a couple times before that, but nothing close to 113. Now he gets a San Diego team that's good and doesn't strike out. San Diego is a sleeper stack, I think.
San Diego, a sleeper stack. I don't completely hate it, even though Severino, his barrel percentage way down this season. He's probably one of those pitchers that I think continues to just impress me from the perspective that, like, I didn't think he had this in him. Doesn't have the strikeout rate, not going to be playing him in DFS, but looking at a lot of his peripheral numbers, much, much better than I was expected coming into this year. That is for darn sure. I mean, a 4.30 xFIP, though, still somewhat attackable. 3.85 expected ERA, a little bit better than his 3.91 ERA, but he's not ungettable. He's definitely somebody that I think against the Padres, number one in baseball, or top 3 in baseball in WRC plus on the season against right-handed pitching. I can definitely make a case for it. Can you make a case for any stacks that you want to be under the field on?
Toronto. I mean, Toronto's going to be way too highly owned here. They're just not a team I play at high ownership. I mean, not for me. Again, it almost worked out last night. They were looking really good. And I do think, you know, I wouldn't be crossing them out if I were playing 150 and I might have exposure to some of the bats, but I'm not stacked 5-man stacking Toronto here at this ownership. Griffin Cannon stinks, but they're babying him a little bit by using an opener, which I like for him. And this is the other thing about the Angels too. I'm with you that both these bullpens aren't good. So I'm not like not playing them because it's a bullpen game. It's still just different arms coming in, which is harder than facing one arm, you know, for 3, 4, 5 innings. That said, all it takes is one arm to be bad and you've got yourself a big inning. So I understand both the Angels and Toronto. I'm higher on the Angels, guaranteed 9 innings. I like the matchup slightly more for them. I do like them against lefties, presuming Yarborough comes in. So for me, the answer is easily Toronto.
Easily Toronto. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Toronto's going to be massively, massively owned relative to their chances of success. And that's exactly what our tools are showing. 17.9% ownership. They're, you know, the highest stack score for sure, but I love the Angels at the comparable ownership. So that's going to be my ride or die here to some extent. Probably going to die because that seems to be the way baseball goes from time to time. But I am okay with it because it's about the long game, friends. It's about the long game. Like playing golf at Castle Pines this weekend. It's the long game. Let's dig into this because now we got FanDuel to cover, and then we'll get to some one-offs and the home runs as we get ourselves the heck up out of here for an actual right up to the brink of it live before lock. FanDuel has some interesting ownership, to say the very least, relative to DK. Still going to be Toronto, still going to be very, very popular here on today's slate, but I think we got a couple of spots to maybe extract a little bit of value. Angels, yet again, going to be one I want to get to. Tons of leverage going their direction. But Baltimore, a little bit more popular, where you're only playing 4 pieces of it. San Diego, a little bit more popular, 10% ownership share. And Pittsburgh up there at 10%. A little bit flatter here where, you know, Toronto is at 19% and boosted up a little bit more than DK. But it seems like there's like 3 or 4 teams and then a big drop off here. How about a little bit of a, well, not just the Angels there, but how about a little bit of Philadelphia sitting there where you're only rostering 4? You can get to, you know, the guys who would cause pain for Schwellenbach, to Schwarber, to Harper, to, you know, a lot of these guys that are more expensive on that side of things. I like Philly a little bit more on FanDuel than I do on DK. Obviously, the home runs, too, very, very valuable over on DK, and keep the line moving on FanDuel. But I'll still aim for some home runs over there. Sounds good to me. How you feeling about FanDuel and the current ownership we have on the stacks there?
Yeah, Angels coming in with a ton of leverage here. They're still pretty cheap, not quite as cheap as on DraftKings. Maybe it's a positional thing. It's the same stacks for me. It's the Angels, the Phillies, and then the Mets. I like the Phillies here. Like they kind of stand out to me as a team. Again, they're not likely to succeed. I think Schwellenbach is really good, but when Philly gets there, they hit home runs. I mean, just look at their lineup. And on slates like this, 5 gamers, like I like playing just really good teams like that.
I don't hate that either. God, Pittsburgh's just really popular over there against Lodolo. Like,
they're kind of popular in DK
high.
Also.
Yeah, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. Makes me think Lodolo might end up a little bit lower owned, but I don't know. He's 8,800 over on FanDuel. Less inclined to click on that. DK 8K though. Ooh, might have to give him a little boost before lock. See what we ended up getting here. Let's put a couple of lineups also. If you guys want to have your lineups simmed out here, we got 7 minutes. We got Jordan Klein on the other side of things too. I want you to all, just the same way we have all week, be utilizing that single lineup simulator. If you have a lineup that you do want critique, go ahead and throw that into chat right now. Would be happy to do it. We've got 6 minutes left, plenty of time to make an adjustment here or there if you are so inclined. And, well, wouldn't you know, we have a Klein in Jordan Klein who can help you do that by putting in those lineups here. To recap, DK, your favorite popular stack, favorite contrarian stack?
Popular stack's going to be the Angels.
Okay.
Contrarian is going to be the Mets, and Philly's right in the middle.
Yep, I love the Angels today. I don't see how they aren't my favorite, even on DK. And then I'll say contrarian. Part of me wants to say Philadelphia now. Now I've got Philly in my head because Schwellenbach is just popping to the top of everything that I'm looking at, and it is hard to negate. Yeah, my number one simmed ROI lineup has a 3-man Philly stack to go along with it in Marsh, Rojas for a little salary savings, and Real Muto, but none of the main poppers there. That's kind of the tough part, is they are very expensive. I'll go contrarian. Yeah, I'll go with the Philly. I'll go with the Philly side of things. They're a little bit lower around there. And we've got those people firing up some stuff. Nobody wants to have their lineup sim today. That's okay, because it is a short show. We've got 5 minutes as well. But make sure you're checking out the single lineup simulator. Going to come in major handy come NFL season. Also going to be something that we're going to be utilizing on shows nonstop, because it is such a cool tool. And being able to make it for short field or for small field and for large field, a huge important difference in how you go about simming out your lineups. And you can do it directly on the page there. Such a great addition by our dev team. Love everything about that tool the more that I use it. So I'll be utilizing it to single lineup simulator work on mobile. I do not believe that it works on mobile here right now, but we're always taking suggestions. We can always make those changes and revamp. It is useful. Let me find this too. Get your lineups in as well. 4 minutes to go. I think we've reached that portion of the show. We're looking for bombs and bombs only. And I do have that Lindor one off, so I think it's pretty clear cut where I was going to be going in that direction. Plus 500 at BetMGM. We're going to have him take Mr. Dylan Cease Yard in, for whatever reason, a ballpark that keeps playing smaller and smaller and smaller. Oh, my friend, Matt Belman, who called every homer yesterday. It was just an absurd run of streak. You called Siri out of nowhere, too. Who's your dong of the night tonight?
I'm going way off the board here. This is a guy that's been good to me so many times throughout the past few years. He hardly ever plays. Matt Dice is going yard.
Matt Tice is going yard. Well, 2,600 out of the 7-hole there on DraftKings.com. I don't hate that whatsoever. I want to see who everybody else wants to throw into that chat, though, because, well, I think we got a ton of great options here today for who could potentially be that difference maker and be that dude. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Throw them all into the chat there. Oh, God, am I really going to play frickin' Corbin Burns and Nick Lodolo in my single entry? Am I really going to do that tonight?
Yeah, I see Lodolo. I think he's picking up a little steam. I'm not sure. He'll probably still fall through the cracks a bit just because of the slate, but I'm not playing him. The pitch count is my biggest worry. I don't care that he was bad last start. He doesn't throw a ton of pitches right now.
Maybe I'll just go Schwellenbach and Corbin Burns to get a little bit different there to finish it out. I don't know. I don't even like that combo though. I want to play Arrighetti. Maybe Arrighetti Skeens and I'll just embrace the volatility of it. Screw it. That's going to be what I do. Whatever. Clue, we clicked on it. Do it, Eric. Lindor is going yard. I simmed out all these lineups ahead of time on the show. And yeah, the Angels were just awesome in the single lineup simulator. And that makes me feel better about being able to rotate through the pitching and move on with my life. But here we are. Everybody else's home run calls. EMAC, you stole my home run play from the show. Plus 630. Ryan O'Hearn. I love it so much. But yeah, you should also be betting him. He's going to take Arrighetti on a ride at some point here. We got Jerkson Profar from Sotex, Joe Adele from Reg Kell 85, Moniac from Trip, Alonso and Varsho. You can't have two. That is freaking cheating. You're a freaking cheater. Pete Alonso, Aaron Hines. We got Camposano from K Thumbs. I kind of like that. That's different. Chris Williams, Lindor is going yard. I love you. I love you. I love you. Obi-Wan, Jimenez, Michael Pavlik, Horowitz, and that, friends, Ben Gamble. If Ben Gamble goes yard, I'm just going to freak the F out, but have your lineups in. We've got 1 minute until lock. We got Jordan Klein behind the virtual glass. Great job, as always, this entire week. I actually looked at the schedule. I think tomorrow. Is it correct? Is Greg coming back tomorrow? We got Greg and Belman tomorrow, and then I'm off. That's cool. Okay, I'm chill with that. I just looked at it. Anywho, Matt Belman, it's been a great week. In the event that it is not you and me on Live Before Lock tomorrow, in the event that it is you and Greg, have a great show. Keep crushing it. Really enjoyed you and all the analysis throughout the week. I'm sure into the weekend for you as well. But any final words for the people as we get out of here?
No, that's all I got, man.
That's fantastic stuff. Go run it back. Go take down the 250. Go take down all the high stakes this week or tonight. That would be great. And then check out, well, we got football. We'll have football on Saturday. Oh, it's good. It's in the air. Feel it. Palpable. Anyway, we've got Jordan Klein. I'm going to get out of here. I don't know how to end shows because that's just something that I don't know how to do anymore. But thank you to Bet365. Thank you to the Dead Team for all their work on the single lineup simulator because that made my life easier. We're at lock. Let's get out of here. See you later.